American women have today lost a fundamental constitutional protection, we dissent. This, of course, is going to inflame a lot of debate. It is going to further deepen the divide in our country. There is a lot of emotions running high on both sides of this issue, and we're going to hear a lot more of that, of course, locally and nationally.
And speaking of the other side, we are expected to hear from Illinois Right to Life and March for Life. They're holding a press conference at noon today to talk about their support for this decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. So again, we are going to hear from both sides throughout the day today. We do expect to hear from Mayor Lightfoot here in Chicago, and then the governor eventually as well. And later on this morning at around 11:30 Chicago time from President Biden himself, as you take a live picture outside right now. Nice and quiet for now. It's not going to stay that way because we've seen, if you can look all the way in the distance there, right? This is the Supreme Court. In the distance there are hundreds of protesters there. This is a closer look.
At the Supreme Court right here. And like you said, we are seeing tons and tons of protests. And if you're just joining us right now, this is breaking news. It is no longer a federal constitution right for women to have abortions in the United States of America. Of course, this is the most consequential Supreme Court decision in decades. This will transform the landscape of women's reproductive health in America. Abortion rights, as you have said, Diane, will be determined by states unless Congress acts, unless we hear from the president that something else is going to happen. This is going to spark a lot of outrage and a lot of support on both sides of this issue.
And Governor Pritzker, over the course, when this decision, or this opinion, they called it, came down initially several weeks ago, Governor Pritzker was very quick to hold a press conference at that time to talk about how Illinois, he called it a safe state where abortions will be legal here. He made it very, very clear, and that's the stand that Mayor Lightfoot has made as well. Again, we are expecting to hear from both Chicago's Mayor Lightfoot and Governor Pritzker on this announcement. Again, the Supreme Court ruling. What this does is, you can read on your screen there, it allows states to restrict abortion rights, sort of making their own rights and being as strict and restrictive as they want to be, as they choose to be in that state. So this has a very large trickle effect across the country, affecting women all across the country. But we do expect to hear from both sides in our state as well. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Illinois Right to Life and March for Life, they also are holding a press conference, a pro-life press conference happening at noon today.
And you have to imagine the Illinois gubernatorial candidates will also probably be making statements.
Oh, yes.
As everyone has been vocal on both sides of this issue on a woman's right to choose. Again, if you are just joining us right now, this is a big decision, the most consequential Supreme Court decision in decades in terms of a woman's reproductive health in America. We just heard from reporters and folks who are questioning what happens when a woman who is a victim of rape is forced now to carry that baby until full term, and the impact that is going to have on them.
Yeah, that's another thing that the states will have to decide. Will they make an exception, right, for rape or for incest? And we should mention that Governor Pritzker is going to call for a special session with legislators to talk further about the rules here in Illinois, where they stand, where they will continue to stand as far as reproductive rights are concerned with women in this state.
And as we mentioned too, at least 21 states right now have laws or constitutional amendments already in place that would make them certain to attempt to ban abortions as quickly as possible. Of course, this now making it a federal constitution ban on women having abortions. And we, again, are waiting, of course, to hear from the President of the United States, President Biden. We know that Kamala Harris is in the state of Illinois today. We have to wonder if she will be making any comments here from the state. Will she be in touch with Governor Pritzker? Governor Pritzker, like you said, very vocal about how Illinois will welcome those who still are in the position to want to exercise their right to choose.
And I know this can get confusing. When you talk about Roe v. Wade, you talk about the history of it. 50 years ago, this was decided. So what does this Supreme Court ruling mean? What does it allow other states to do? Well, what it does, it sort of is like giving the power back to a state, right? As the state of Illinois, for example, has the power to make a decision about reproductive rights in their state. It allows the states to get the power back. So some states in this country have already come out and said, we will make it very restricted in our state to have an abortion. Whereas other states, like for example in Illinois, we will not have those sort of restrictions. We haven't. And again, Governor Pritzker has come out when this opinion came down and said they will not have restrictions in this state. So that's what this means. This means the power goes back to the states and back to the governors, to the mayors and other legislators in that state.
Right, and this was originally decided in 1973.
50 years ago. 50 years ago.
50 years ago, Title IX, very monumental year of what has happened 50 years ago, establishing a constitutional right to abortion before fetal viability, which most experts say occurs now at around 23 to 24 weeks of pregnancy. Now, this decision was reaffirmed, of course, in 1992 with the case of Planned Parenthood versus Casey.
And this isn't a ruling that was not expected. I think there was, when the Supreme Court opinion came down a few weeks ago, or several weeks ago at this point, there was this knowledge that this could be coming, but we were all sort of standing by, waiting to see when the Supreme Court was going to come out publicly and say something officially, and that obviously has happened. So it's not like this is a complete surprise, but still, I think a lot of groups were kind of at the edge of their seat, waiting to see what the official ruling would be. So, and again, if you're just joining us, just tuning in here, this is a live picture of the Supreme Court with protesters outside of the Supreme Court protesting the Supreme Court decision. As we said, Mayor Lori Lightfoot now at the podium. Let's tune in.
Across our country at the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. 50 years of precedent. I know as a lawyer, one of the basic concepts that we were taught is something called stare decisis, which means settled law stays settled. And the fact that the Supreme Court has taken this extraordinary activist action to strike down women's rights for bodily autonomy is simply an outrage. Unfortunately, we've had time to digest today's events because after the draft opinion was leaked, it was clearly a question of when, not if. So we have been prepared, we are ready. But I also want to say to people, take note of Justice Thomas's concurring opinion. He is clearly signaling the activist agenda of this conservative majority, where they want to overturn many of the precedents that were premised upon Roe v. Wade's right to privacy. But I got a message for the Justice Thomas and for the Supreme Court. We will not let you take away our rights under any circumstances. These rights are hard fought. These rights are in the spirit of who we are as Americans. We're not going to go back to a day when women do not have bodily autonomy. We're not going to go back to a day where interracial marriage is vilified. We will not go back to a day when gay men in loving each other is treated as criminal act, and we will not retreat from same-gender marriage. We're not going backwards. So we're going to get people activated. We're going to mobilize, and we're going to fight with all our heart to make sure that the American promise of equal justice under law is real, that it is living and breathing in our country today. So while this decision is angering and frustrating, it's a momentary setback. And we will be even more determined and more adamant to make sure that our rights are respected under law. We're not going backwards. And if the Supreme Court wants to continue to be a politicized organization which delegitimizes itself in the institution, which derobs it of any credibility or legitimacy, so be it. But what I know and what I am committed to making sure is that the city of Chicago remains a justice for all city. So I want to say to women out there in states where the trigger laws are going to go into effect here in the coming days and weeks, you have sanctuary in the city of Chicago. We respect your rights, we support your rights, and we will be here for you. I want people to look all across this country at the states that are going to weaponize this decision against women, against trans members of our community, against the Black and Asian and other minorities. The fight to make sure that our civil rights are respected is not over, and we are not yielding any ground without making sure that we are ready and fighting every single day for our rights. So in Chicago and other cities across the country, we will stand as beacons of light for what our country should be standing for is equal justice under law. We will not retreat. We will fight, fight, fight. So thank you. Happy to entertain any questions you might have. All right, thank you, everyone.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot, very, very passionate. Mayor Lori Lightfoot speaking about the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe, saying Chicago, and she has said this, by the way, since the opinion leaked several weeks ago, that Chicago is going to be a beacon of light for equal justice. Now, we're waiting for what you're seeing in that screen to your left is Governor Pritzker. We're waiting for him to come to the podium for his reaction to this announcement.
And now let's join in and listen.
LGBTQ rights. Howard Brown will continue to fight for LGBTQ liberation every day by continuing to affirm our patients and their families and helping them reach their healthcare and wellness goals. We provide comprehensive sexual and reproductive health care to tens of thousands of patients annually. This includes counseling, STI and HIV screening, contraception, pregnancy testing, OBGYN services, and leakage to pregnancy termination services for patients who need these services. Pride Month will culminate this Sunday in parades across the country commemorating the 1969 Stonewall riots, where fed-up members of our community pushed back against the systemic oppression they were subjected to on a daily basis. On Sunday, we will do it again. Thank you for gathering at Howard Brown. Now it is my great honor to welcome Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker.
We knew this day was coming. The extremists on the Supreme Court have made an abhorrent decision, one rooted in partisan games, leaving an indelible stain on our nation. Overturning Roe v. Wade directly contradicts the nation's history of expanding rights in the United States. It's an attack on freedom and liberty that our Constitution is supposed to guarantee. Right now, it's abortion that they're taking away. Next, it will be birth control and other contraceptives. Next, fertility treatment. They are coming to take away women's power to become mothers at the time of their choosing. And they are allowing states to criminalize the exercise of reproductive rights. Women and their doctors are now threatened with going to prison or being bankrupted because of the radical majority Donald Trump and his right-wing allies created on the Supreme Court. Here we are, exactly at the point many of us feared and even predicted. Privacy rights are being eviscerated right before our very eyes. If they can take away your ability to control your own body, there's not much that stops them from making marriage equality illegal and taking away employment protections for your beliefs or your orientation. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. We are headed down a dangerous spiral that will erode our democracy. This attack on personal rights is not new in the world. We've read this book before. I've read this book before. Maybe the Supreme Court will now authorize burning that book. If you want a glimpse into the future, you can look to our past. Just a few miles away from here, at the old Cook County Hospital, there was a wing once known as Ward 41. Ward 41 was dedicated to what they used to call septic obstetrics, or in layman's terms, botched abortions. From 1961 to 1965 alone, Ward 41 doctors managed the aftermath of over 20,000 illegal abortions. Because abortions were illegal, desperate women sought out desperate solutions. Hospital professionals from back then say what they saw was nothing short of horrific. Disturbing memories etched into their minds for eternity. They treated women who burned their insides with bleach and peroxide, women whose uteruses were perforated with paintbrushes, cocktail stirrers, knitting needles, and wire coat hangers. Women who were nearly dead due to unimaginable blood loss and advanced sepsis. These women saw no other choice. They risked their lives out of desperation for just a semblance of control, and far too many died. Before Roe v. Wade, criminal abortions were the leading cause of maternal death in the United States by a 7-to-1 margin. Those who did not die were left infertile, in perpetual pain, and permanently traumatized. I'm thinking about those women, those we've lost, and those who've been harmed. We cannot allow their deaths to be in vain. Make no mistake, in the many states where they will be illegal, abortions will continue. Now they will also be dangerous, they will be secretive, and they will be deadly. I'm here to say we cannot go back to Ward 41, Illinois. In Illinois, we will not go back to Ward 41. And for all the women whose fundamental rights have been taken away today, we stand with you. We will raise our voices, we will open our arms to help you, and we will protect your rights. To the right-wing office holders who today are cheering the Supreme Court's ruling, get your iron boot off women's necks. Hop off your high horse and know that what you're calling a celebration of life today will actually lead to death. The death of women in abusive situations, the death of women whose health is at risk, the death of women and girls who will still seek abortions, ones that are unsafe and performed by unqualified back alley butchers. Let me make this explicit and clear to women throughout our state, throughout the Midwest, and our nation. Illinois will be a safe haven for the exercise of your reproductive rights. In Illinois, Roe v. Wade is still the law, and it will remain the law as long as we have a pro-choice legislature and a pro-choice governor. Here, we trust you to make your own decisions about your reproductive health. We will defend your right to bodily autonomy. In Illinois, we will hold firm to these rights and continue to work with stakeholders, many of whom are standing with me now, to expand them. To that end, I am informing the General Assembly that I will be calling them into special session in the coming weeks to more firmly protect women's reproductive rights in Illinois and address the challenges posed by this radical Supreme Court decision. I'm grateful to have the support and partnership of House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch and Senate President Don Harmon in this effort. Together, the Democratic leadership in Illinois is committed to taking swift action to further enshrine our commitment to reproductive health care. I want to close by speaking to those who have the most at stake in today's decision. To the single mom juggling 4 kids and 3 part-time jobs, Illinois will fight for you. To the teenage child who endured rape or incest, Illinois will fight for you. To the marginalized and most vulnerable who are being attacked at every turn by transphobic or misogynistic or bigoted politicians, Illinois will fight for you. We will not turn back the clock. Here in the land of Lincoln and the home state of Barack Obama, where we were the first to ratify women's suffrage 100 years ago, we will continue to fight for freedom, for liberty, and for justice for all. And now I'd like to bring up to the podium a relentless fighter and the House sponsor of the Reproductive Health Act in Illinois, Representative Kelly Cassidy.
As you were just listening to a very emotional Governor Pritzker
Let's go back to the press conference.
Thank you, Governor. I spent the whole summer of 2019 at bill signings with you saying what a difference a governor makes. And that has never been more true than today. I want to lead with such an important piece. It can't be overstated. Abortion remains legal in Illinois. If you have an appointment, keep it. If you were thinking of making an appointment, make it. We are protecting choice in Illinois. As David mentioned, we were supposed to be here celebrating the passage of the bill granting increased access to PEP and PrEP, which frankly is another part of the reproductive health spectrum as far as I'm concerned. And it's part of the work that we as a state have been very intentionally taking on to build in these protections, build in access to the care that our residents need. Some of us have known this day was coming for years. I'm looking at you, Colleen, and others, but Colleen and I have been working on this together for a very long time. No matter how you prepare, no matter how long you anticipate it, it still hurts. For those not in Illinois, who today lost agency over their bodies, for those here and elsewhere who know that this decision is a roadmap to dismantle the remaining rights, I've referred to my life as a Jenga puzzle, as a queer mom married to a non-binary spouse with a second parent adoption to my kids. Everything teeters on, frankly, Clarence Thomas's concurring opinion, where he set out the roadmap to take away my marriage, my kids' adoption, my ability to work. We've done a lot here in Illinois, and I'm so thrilled to hear that we're going to be coming back together to do more, because we have to. We built the firewall to protect, and it holds, but it's only as strong as the next election. We have 2 Supreme Court races on the ballot in November. The balance of the court hangs on those 2 races, and therefore the Reproductive Health Act, our marriage equality laws, our civil rights laws, all hang by that same balance. When we come back together, it will be to create proactive supports for those here, the providers and patients that are here, and those that are coming here. And I'm so grateful to have the partnership of my governor, my speaker, my colleagues in the General Assembly, to know that while all around us, reproductive health and gender-affirming care are under attack, we will protect those patients and those providers. We will make it possible for them to continue to provide care and receive care without fear. We knew today was coming. We didn't anticipate how hard it would hit. But we have a very powerful army. And nobody behind me is going to let up anytime soon, I know. With that, I want to bring up one of those bold fighters, one of my newer colleagues, Senator Christine Patsion Zayas.
All right. No amount of time could fully prepare us for the egregious decision against bodily autonomy and self-determination our highest court refuses to recognize as a fundamental human right. The bottom line is this: abortion saves lives. No words can meet the level of grief and suffering this decision will cause. Days like today shake the foundation of our nation, and it will go down as a shameful moment in our history. We must hold fast to the truth that women and pregnant people and individuals assigned female at birth across this country have the right to their own body. They had that right yesterday, they have that right today, and Illinois upholds that right. It's an unalienable right. The Illinois Constitution I swore an oath to support enshrines in its first article all individuals by nature are free and independent and have certain inherent and inalienable rights, which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I, along with all of my colleagues here in the General Assembly and our governor, will defend that. To deny access to these rights is to deny access to our humanity. And that is something no overreaching court can take from us. Now is that time to unite around the common, inalienable humanity to recognize that while Illinois will remain a haven for your rights, the only state in our region, some won't stop until they obliterate our state's rights to defend a pregnant person's liberty. When I think about the effects of this decision, I think about how am I going to explain this to my kids? I have a son and I have a daughter. And I have to tell one, you have rights, but you don't. I often make policy thinking about how can I explain this to children? This is not explainable. And children have that inherent quality to ask why. There's no way that we can explain ourselves out of this. I think of the people in Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, and the 23 other states that have introduced hostile legislation limiting abortion and reproductive health care. I think of that pregnant person who may not be able to receive life-saving care due to a doctor's fear of providing that abortion. I think of the people who know they cannot afford to raise a child in these times of inflation and baby formula shortage in a country with the highest maternal mortality rates in the world. No requirement for paid leave following birth, and a healthcare system that lacks equity and support, especially for Black, Indigenous, and Latina people. While I'm so grateful to live in and represent a state that protects our reproductive rights, I know it's a privilege. To women and pregnant people and individuals assigned female at birth across this country seeking an abortion, we are saying that you are welcome in Illinois. We will fight for you, we will support you, we will uplift you, and we will keep you safe. For this primary on Tuesday and November's general election, game on. This is on the ballot. Now it's my honor to introduce Leader Collins.
All right, if you are just joining us
Senator.
now,
Good
of
morning.
course, we are following breaking news. Roe v. Wade, the landmark Supreme Court decision of 1973 that granted women the right to an abortion in every state, has now been overturned. We have heard from, and a very emotional Governor Pritzker, as well as Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Governor Pritzker saying that we knew this day was coming for a long time, that the Supreme Court is playing partisan games, that this is an attack of freedom and liberty, but maintaining that Chicago will be a safe haven, that abortion is still legal here in the state of Illinois.
Let's bring in Ron Safer, who's a former federal prosecutor. Ron, I want to break this down for folks that are maybe a little confused, because it can get a little complicated, because what this means is that the Supreme Court is sort of giving the rights back to the states. Break it down for us if you can.
That is exactly right, and it's important to understand what the Supreme Court does and doesn't do. The Supreme Court doesn't declare what is legal or illegal. What it does is it measures laws against the Constitution. So what Roe did was it struck down a state law that said that abortion was a crime. The Supreme Court said that was unconstitutional. And now, today, the Supreme Court overruled that. The basis of overruling it is critically important. And it is why when the governor says that Roe v. Wade is still the law in Illinois, he's not correct. It's not the law anywhere. But states have control, just as you say. The Supreme Court has said that a law striking down that makes abortion a crime is not unconstitutional. The Constitution permits it. Remember, the Bill of Rights is a constraint, a restriction on what the government can do to the people. And the court interprets that. And today the court said, look, abortion's nowhere in the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't protect that right. But what is critical is to look at what the basis of Roe was. The basis of Roe was a case called Griswold. Griswold struck down a Connecticut law that made it a crime to use birth control. And Griswold, for the first time, the Supreme Court said, the First Amendment doesn't explicitly say this, but on its outskirts, on its penumbra, the word that they used, is the right to privacy. That is, the government can't come into our home and say it's illegal to use birth control. That was the basis of Roe. Today, the Supreme Court reversed that basis. And so when the governor says privacy is at risk, he is right.
Ron, I want to ask you this. The governor also said that this is going to cause a dangerous spiral that will erode our democracy. Do you anticipate, I see you smile there, but what do you make of that?
Well, that's politics, right? This will have profound impact. In other words, when the Supreme Court says that there is no right to privacy, because the First Amendment doesn't explicitly say that, well, the right to privacy protected states from making it a crime to use birth control, making it a crime for men to have consensual sex. Those cases are at risk. Now states could pass laws, and this Supreme Court has said they would be constitutional, that would ban or make it illegal to use birth control, that would make it illegal for men to have consensual sex with another man. And now, when the governor says that would implicate rights in the workplace or gay marriage, he's wrong, because that finds its basis in a different amendment, that is the 14th Amendment, which specifically protects equal protection. That is not affected by the Roe decision.
Ron, one more thing I want to point out, because we talk about giving the power back to the states. The states also have the power to give an exception or not to make an exception for rape or incest, correct? Now, they have the power to do that, right?
Absolutely. Today's decision says that a state can say that if you are raped, if you are the victim of incest at 12, you must carry that baby to term. The state has the power to do that, can do it, and it would be, and the state has the power to make it a crime for that 12-year-old to seek an abortion, and a crime to have a doctor administer that abortion. That's what today's ruling said.
Ron, let's talk about, and I know this is maybe hard to answer, but how quickly, if a state chooses to enforce stricter laws, how quickly can they make that happen?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So this is...
States have already passed these laws. And the question is whether or not they are constitutional, whether they can withstand. The Supreme Court answered that question today. Tomorrow, somebody could be prosecuted in a state that has made it illegal to perform an abortion. Somebody could be prosecuted, thrown in jail for performing an abortion. This, it's a profound decision.
Now, Ron,
that has immediate impact.
Let me ask you this. If somebody, for example, and I'm just giving hypotheticals here, crosses the border to a state where it is not illegal, but they are a resident of a state where it is illegal, can they be prosecuted?
No. It is the act of performing the abortion or seeking the abortion where you are. So that is why people have said that Illinois has to prepare for an influx of people who will seek abortion. But here's the problem. The real world problem with that is people who have means will be able to do that. People who have means have always been able to get an abortion for all times, with medical professionals.
Ron,
it is people without means who cannot do that.
Right. Ron, thank you so much for your insight and your time this morning.
My pleasure.
We are going to continue with our breaking news. The Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, the ruling there is no constitutional right to abortion.
If you're just joining us at this hour, this is a live picture outside the Supreme Court in Washington, where you can imagine large groups have gathered both for and against abortion.
It is a monumental ruling, and reaction from all sides coming in this morning. The ruling will lead to a ban on abortion in nearly half of the states in this country. Illinois is not one of them. And our coverage begins in Washington with ABC's Justin Finch.
Down, the court overruled rather than historic Roe decision, essentially taking the issue back to the state.
Good afternoon. The chants and demonstrations now continuing outside the U.S. Supreme Court here behind us. This has been a much anticipated decision now from the court for months. And on either side, there's been spirited debate and also challenges as well. And when that decision came down hours ago, the reaction was immediate.